Hello everyone. If you want to go to my free course, type henry-ward.co.uk into Google, then go to Henry Ward Trading, and then this here is my free course. Click on Start Today. If you want to go on to the webinars that I do every Sunday and every Wednesday, click on Trading Academy and then click on Start Today. So this is the Trading Academy. This is the full training, the webinars, direct access to me, everything that you want. So welcome anyone who is watching this later on or on demand on YouTube. If any questions, pop them in the chat, or if you want to jump into the free chat room or any of those, work away and reach out to me on Discord. So I got a question yesterday on this. Henry, how can I place a trade here on eToro using literally the entry on yesterday's bar? So I'm going to edit this one up. Okay, so the entry was there. And a stop loss was more or less in the same place. I think it was down a fraction lower. I think it was there. Okay, so that was the entry and that was the stop loss. So first and foremost, does everyone think that this here would be a good trade to take? Yes or no? Is this something that you guys would actually take? Okay, so most people are saying no. Okay, the green candle, a bit greener. Well, let's have a look at this line here first. Let me have a look at this line because I know we haven't got anywhere enough information here. If I was looking at this information here, for me, this would have to come back to this level here for me to be interested in this as a buy. Absolutely, that would have to come back anywhere around there for me to be interested in this as a buy. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this one and I'll zoom out and have a quick look. Well, there is a bounce here, bounce and retest. Okay, so there is a bounce there. And there's no more data here. Let's go up onto the weekly, have a quick look. Nope, nothing here at the moment. So there's one bounce and retest. So there is a break and retest on that, and it's happened once. The risk to reward is not great either. Nope, absolutely agreed with you. So we're risking 22.61% of the market to get a 1-to-1 is about there. Okay, there or thereabouts. So that's a 1-to-1. So that's to make a higher high for us to hit a 1-to-1 on this. But just to go through, if anyone was placing this trade, if you're placing this trade on eToro, I'm going to show you the only way on eToro that you can place this trade up. So if we go back here to NatGas, again, just to reiterate, it's not a trade that I would take myself, but it was something that I was asked yesterday. So again, I'm going to move this level up. So there's the stop loss. And I'm going to put this level here as our entry. So there was the entry. So there's a stop loss and that's the entry. Okay. Open this up and I'm going to press the buy button because we're looking to buy it. So the entry on this, actually the entry was live. So we're going to leave the entry as live. The entry was live, wasn't quite there, so I apologize, it was live. So press the buy button. So the only thing down here was the stop loss. So the stop loss on this is 3494. Okay. Does everyone see what just happened there? I'll just put it in again, just so you guys can actually see it. 3.49494. Enter. Look what happens. It's telling me that the lowest stop loss I can get on this is 4.061. So it's telling me that the eToro themselves will not let us put a stop loss any lower than 4.0. Why? Because of the leverage that we're using here. So if I want to place this trade, I then have to go down to lower leverage. So I'm going now to go down to X5. I'm now going to put this in again. So it's 3.494. Enter. And it's now told me again, you cannot put your stop loss any lower than 3.8, which means it's lower now than the previous one, the X10. So I now need to go down to X2 and see, can I place this trade with the stop loss that I want? And it's now telling me that yes, I can. Now we were wanting to put in 100 quid stop loss here. So press the minus button here till it gets to 100 quid. And it's telling me that the minimum trade size on this using the leverage that we have is 500 quid. And the minimum stop I can put on this is 183. So the problem with this is your stop loss is so big on this particular trade, it's not allowing us to use leverage on the eToro platform. Now, on other platforms, if you're on NatGas, if you're on some of the other ones, yes, there's no problems putting that in. It just uses up huge amounts of your margin. Okay, but on this particular one, we could not place it. Why? Because one, you're going at X2 leverage. Two, you're risking the amount of money here is risking. Okay. So it wouldn't let anyone take this trade. Well, it wouldn't let him put that trade down with the parameters. But they are the parameters. If you put your stop loss down here on the likes of this, it's a pretty big stop loss. The risk to reward is not great. So it's not something that I would put in. So it's just something I wanted to go through there to show you. Everything was telling you that the trade was not good, maybe. When that is one way of looking at it, yes. That's one way of looking at it. So we've had a quick look at natural gas here. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. So we have had a little pullback here on the weekly. So the weekly is in phase 2. Yep, the universe is speaking to you on that one. So look, you have a phase 2 on the weekly. So the weekly is in phase 2, and then the daily is in phase 2 as well. So we've come back into this little area here. So there will be people who are looking at this as an entry point right here. There'll be loads of people looking at this as a potential entry and looking at it as entry above that bar and stop loss below it. So entry above the bar, stop loss below it. So is that a trade that you guys are looking at? If we pull it down to that previous high, now I always go to the body of the candle, not the top of the wick, the body of the candle. So that is risking 9% and 16 is our take profit. So just under a 2-to-1. Now, again, with this one, have we got a great trend? No, we don't. Is the trend brilliant? Absolutely not. Is this something that I would take? No, not really. I see it coming back down to this level here before it potentially takes off. So I don't see it taking off before that floor. To me, there's a huge level there going, wait for it to come down to that level, and then potentially we'll assess. Okay, but for me, that's where I'm looking for it to drop down to, in my opinion. But again, I've often been wrong, but I'd expect that to come all the way down to about there. So if we're looking at natural gas, we have to sort of look at oil. So they are a little bit interlinked. They are a little bit interlinked. Now we had some of us had some really nice wins on this. Some of us didn't. Some of us stayed away from it. Pop this over. Okay, so if we look at this, we have a bounce here. We have a bounce here, a bounce there, and it's now come back down to there. So we have a trend line there. Now, this is not really a daily trend line. This is a 4-hour trend line. So if I drop down to the 4-hour and I look at it here, zoom out a little, we now see we've had some pretty decent cyclicity on the 4-hour coming along there. And I've bounced once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and we're now touching again. So there is an argument that there's a potential buy on this right now, entry above that bar there, and stop loss below it. The only problem with that argument is we are massively overextended on the daily. So the daily is massively overextended. We haven't had a real pullback here. Well, no, there's no real pullback here on this. This whole thing is all 4-hour pullback, so we haven't had a real pullback. For me, this is the area, we needed to come back down to here. So see this 84 level? I'm not looking to trade that before then. Does watching the trend line at a 4-hour change how long you are willing to let this trade run? Okay, so I'll answer that question first and then Marcus's. So on the 4-hour here, if I zoom out on the 4-hour, so if you jumped in here in the 4-hour, so there's one cycle, there's 2 cycles. As you can see, the target is inside this previous high. Now this one here, this entry here, I know we took it on the daily and we actually got triggered in and then triggered out. So it's a loss and then look, it went up. But if you happen to actually get this correct here, the question is how long is a piece of string? How long is a piece of string? I know Tyson took this here. He's in the chat group. He took it here and actually let it run the whole way up to $90 here. So he actually let it run through here. He chatted to me and we talked about this going to be a phase 2. We didn't expect the phase 2 to be too big. We had the likes of this line in here. We're back at the trend line, which he geared. He shorted it here a little bit and then continued with the overall position up to about $90. We were looking at this level at 91. Didn't expect it to break that level at 91, but it did. So sometimes you have to have a bit of confidence in what you're doing. And also what he did is he trailed the stop loss. He expected to have a pullback. Now we expected to have a pullback here and it didn't happen. I went through and then we expected to have a pullback, and looking at the bars on the daily, that then dictated what we did with managing that trade. Okay. And if you look at the daily bars here, we have a low test or a high test, and then we have a low test. Then we have another second low test and then a third one. So we have 3 bars there moving sideways. And in that particular scenario, it was telling us that there was no more. Yeah, he made 40K in that trade. Yes, risking 500 quid. But again, you took a little bit of a sell-off here with the intention that it should hit close to the $91, that level that we're looking at. Why? Because the market's bullish. What's going on in the likes of Russia, we're expecting a slowdown in the demand. Also, what's happening across the world is every home energy is at a spike. And why? Because everyone's at home, working from home. And the demand is potentially being squeezed by Russia. So we're expecting that to continue to grow. So that's you manage your trade once using the fundamentals as there, two, using your skill set, and three, having the actual, what would you call it? I'm trying to use an actual proper word without being rude. The actual steel to hold on to that. That makes sense. But again, managing your trades, for me, you put it into an Excel spreadsheet, put it down 3 to 1, 1 to 1, 2 to 1s, and you do that. Then you work out stocks, FX, commodities. And then when you put in that data into this, you'll be able to pick out whether on FX from your trading, a 1 to 1 may work best. If you put it into stocks, probably a 3 to 1 will work best. And if you put it to commodities, a trailing stop loss may work best. So the idea is to actually put it into an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet and make sure you follow it. But people are too lazy to do that. So I get that question all the time, whereas that question is a very easy fix. You just have to do a little bit of work on it. So when was the last time oil was over $90? Let's have a look. In 2014, September 14. So it's been a while since it was up there. And if we have a look, we have highs up here. There's that high. And then we have that one here. So we have a lot. Why do you trail a stop loss on some and then not others? So I only use a trailing stop loss if I have hit the 3 to 1. So remember, most of my targets are 3 to 1. So I only use a trailing stop loss if I expect the market to continue growing. And then I'll use a trailing stop loss. So that means anything above the 3 to 1 is banked. And the only other time I've used a trailing stop loss was just to do a test with you guys. But on FX, what I will do is on FX, I will par close my trades and I'll move my stop loss inside break even. But that's not a trailing stop loss, that's manually moved. So we're looking like we're getting a little bit of a sell-off on oil. I would expect it to come back to the $84, $80 mark and then potentially sort of kick off again. But we have to sort of wait for it to come back into the likes of this area. And if it comes back, then that could be a good place to buy. China came back into sort of this area. I know some of you guys took this trade, some of you guys didn't. Anyone that did, you're slightly up at the moment. It's just flittering around here now at this particular moment. Is that trade valid now? Nope. I don't want to see anyone getting into this trade now. The trade was off this level. That's where you should have been taking it, off this level, a limit order or a buy stop on the one that I've set up, either or. If you don't know what any of the stuff that I'm talking about at any stage, let me know. I have a free course. Jump onto the free course and it will generally go through everything that I'm talking about here. So if you don't know what a limit order or a stop order is, it's on the course. Missed the train. Goodbye with the Olympics happening. Well, you say it's a goodbye with the Olympics happening. There's no one allowed in, you know what I mean, to the stadium and stuff like that there. So it's the Olympics is going to cost them 300 million. If that's the recorded figure. So it may or may not be. UK 100. Unfortunately, we didn't get a nice pullback here. We didn't get a nice pullback here with this. It wasn't something that came back nicely for us. We had a big, huge bar here. Now, you potentially could have taken that on the smaller time frame, but I'm guessing not many people did. 4-hour entry there on that. You may have been deterred because it was a lower high, But if you'd have taken that, you would have probably hit a 2-to-1 on this at the moment. But again, there's nothing happening on the daily chart. This is not something that we should be looking at the moment on the daily chart. So we're not looking at this. We need this to go up and then retest. I need this phase one to continue and then pull back. So yes, if you put a trade in already, then it's triggered and it is running and it's getting close to the trade. If it hits the 3-to-1, you're out of the trade. But if it's close to the 3-to-1, you can then set up a trailing stop loss on it. Yes, absolutely. And you can put the trailing stop loss at 1% behind, 2% behind, whatever you want, 3% behind. So it's up to yourself. That's on eToro. On most brokers, because they're not a broker without a web access won't allow you to trail a stop. A broker with a web access platform generally allows you to have a trailing stop. So if you're trading on MetaTrader, you won't have access to a trailing stop. Because it has to have access to the market all the time. So the French CAC came back and retested that level there. You had a little inside bar. I'm not sure I'm confident enough to actually take that in the market at the moment. So there is an entry there, stop loss below it, and you are just about break even right now on it. German DAX, something similar. Want the German DAX to come down and hit this floor. If it hit this floor, there's another trade on this. So like we have the order here. So it's an entry here, the same order that we had placed before. So if we come down and hits this, we will be triggered into that trade. The Dow. So yesterday was a strange all day. So the market literally didn't move anywhere. We had an inside bar, and today's futures market is literally pivoting, which is quite interesting, and it's quite nice to see. Everyone is sort of waiting on something, or it means that the sellers are sort of out of the market at the minute. The bullishness on the selling has sort of stopped. Okay, so that's something that is happening. Yeah, there is CPI news. Yes, I understand that. But we will tackle that when it's announced. Okay, but it's nice to see that the market has sort of stopped. A nice big wick on this. It's sort of stopped here inside, and it is waiting, which is nice to see. That's the level it stopped at. Bounce, 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 and now look, retested. So there is a technical level there. How strong it is? Not massively. Why? Because we've seen it broken there. We've seen it broken here. But if the news is positive, it'd be very easy to see the market pop to the upside of this. People are getting a little more bullish on the market at the moment than negative. Okay, just to do. Would you exit a trade rather than wait for the news to impact? So, Blaze, it depends on your market sentiment. Do you think that this is the beginning of a bullish market? So see this, are you looking at this as a phase one, phase two, and then a phase one? Or I did this on my Sunday webinar. Are you looking at this as phase one, phase two, phase one? Which of the two are you looking at? So are you looking at this as a phase one down, heading down here? Or are you looking at this as a phase one up here? So which one are you looking at? And that will dictate which one you are looking at. Do you need to look at the Dixie when trading the Dow? Not so much. At the moment, there's a little bit of correlation between them, but not so much. Remember that the Dixie is what most people is the dollar index. So the dollar index is the FX currencies. Now, the stock market and the FX currencies are generally not linked per se. Why? Because the stock market continues to go up, even though US dollar is dropping or moving sideways. So when we have massive volatility like this, there is a little bit of linkage between them, but not huge. It's just watching the little bits of news that are coming out and keeping an eye. So it's much. Powell has a much bigger bearing on this at the minute than the likes of usually. Okay, so keep an eye on the likes of the interest rates and the Fed with their announcements. And because the market is jitterish at the minute, there's a big impact. But as a general rule, the market continues going up. So Blaze, to answer your question, it depends on what your sentiment is. If your sentiment is overall down, then I'd be taking my trade if it was a buy and taking profit. If your sentiment is up, I'll be then looking at this and going, well, is my stop loss protected? Is my stop loss in a nice area? If it's protected, then I potentially leave this trade open. But again, that is something that you have to work out. And also, this is something that you would label in on your Excel spreadsheet is I've closed my trade early due to news. And then go back and have a look at it as historically over these news announcements, if you left your trades alone, would you be up or would you be down over a period of time? So that's another thing, and that's the idea of doing the data rather than trying to tackle your emotions. Let data give you an answer rather than your emotions. And I know we're all emotional beings. So this is actually the trade that we sort of talked about on the webinar, is potentially taking that short off that high test bar there. I know we looked at a little bit late, so the entry was there. And see, we're looking at this. Are we looking at this as a downtrend, or is everyone looking at it as a phase one, phase two, phase one, phase two? And that was the top pattern. Are we looking at it like this? So it depends on you. So this is no different to the Dixie, or not Dixie, to the Dow. We are looking at this. It is either we have a potential trade short, and there's also a potential trade long here at the moment. Again, off that level. Bounce, bounce, almost bounced. And we're back here. Look, we have an inside bar, we have a small selling bar, stop loss below here, entry above there. Are we looking for the buyers to jump in? So I'm just going to pop that in there. Long position. So stop loss there. I wanted to do that. I wouldn't do it. Entry there. Stop loss there. So that is 2%. I would want to be getting out of the market before there. 3.7. So looking at this, we actually have a potential trade short that should have been taken there. Okay, so you're up a little bit of money on it. And we actually now have a potential trade long. So in this particular scenario, what bias are you? Are you long or are you short in this market? Would you rather take the long position, or would you rather take the short position here? And don't be biased by my drawing here. That's just for illustration purposes. Do you expect this to come the whole way down to this floor here? Oh, zoom out. Sorry, Alistair. You don't really need me to zoom out on the likes of these, do you? The overall trend is up. So most people are saying a buy. Now, obviously, we're not actually placing a trade here, but again, it depends on you. Tyson has said come down to the floor. There is a high probability of that happening. I would be more biased for it to come down to here on double bottom before it takes off. But in that scenario, I would keep my money in my pocket. I wouldn't be looking to trade in the middle of this. If I got a second cycle, then it'd give me a little more confidence and I'd potentially look into trading it. But at the minute, no. It has made lower highs and lower lows. Absolutely, of course it has. There's a high, there's a low, there's a lower high, and then this is phase one to the downside. So phase one, phase two, phase one, phase two, and we're in phase one on the way down, technically. So remember, if you're trading this, keep your eyes open and your wits about you. We talked about this on the smaller time frame, this pullback here. So break and retest, and we drop down to the smaller time frame here. We talked about this being on sugar. Zoom out. So we talked about this bounce, and then look and retest it here on this high test bar. And if you took that to the downside, you're slightly up at the moment. Now, if we're looking at the Nasdaq looks a little more room to the downside here. Looks a little more room to the downside here. And if you look at this, my take profit is just inside the body of all these candles here, this quadruple bottom. So if we go back up to the daily, have a quick look. Phase one, phase two. There's a little more pressure to the downside here than on the Nasdaq and the RR on the S&P and the Dow. So for me, I would expect it to come down here before it takes off. But we're now going to pop over onto a little more rosier markets, little bit. BTC. Okay, so we didn't quite come back down to this level. We didn't quite come down to this level. We got very, very close. So the low was 32,900 there. And it went back up to 45,000. So that's a jump of 6,000 there. Did I say 39 or sorry, 32? So that's a jump of 13,000. Sorry, that's a jump of 13,000 there, which is a pretty big movement at the present moment. Now the problem is that we have no idea how much strength is in this at the moment. Why? Because the overall trend has been down. The overall trend is down. The overall momentum has been down. So we have no idea whether this is going to consolidate around here for a period of time, or whether we're going to continue slowly growing and then come back and then continue. Okay. But this is the first signs that we are getting a little bit of bullish movement on this. Now, if we start to get a cycle to the upside here, if we get another cycle to the upside, okay, sorry, before I ask that, has anyone bought more in this movement to the upside here? Anyone bought any more on this movement here to the upside? No, yes. No, yes. Yes, no. I use BT as a reference by ADA and DOT. Okay, so then that did you buy any more ADA or DOT? No, a little bit. No, yes, I did. Okay, cool. So we're going to take that as a yes. Best time to buy is in the bear market. Got more ADA. Okay, cool. So there's about, well, it looks like about 60% said yes. Okay. So if we get the likes of this happening, I'm going to change this to purple so we can have a look. Change the thickness as well. So if that happens, would you guys buy more? Or the people who haven't bought any, would you buy some more? Or would you buy some? So that's where that levels come from. So it was the previous high over here. It came down and retested. It bounced there. It bounced there. And would be rebounce it again. We'd be bouncing off this trend line and also this horizontal. So most people have said yes. Most people have said yes. I was looking to buy between 42.5 and 43. Okay. So does Bitcoin always become cyclicity? Does it always give us nice cyclicity like this? Does Bitcoin always, or cryptocurrency, not just Bitcoin, does cryptocurrency give us nice cyclicity like this all the time? No. Only if Elon stays quiet. So what happens if this just takes off from here? So what happens if this bar here ends up here? Because that could absolutely happen on cryptocurrency. I know the majority of you will be very happy. Yeah, but if it retrace, it will retrace from there. But normally what would happen is then we get a small retracement. We get a sort of a retracement back to here. And then it goes again. So the point I'm trying to make is if you're looking at this and you're expecting this to go up and then retrace, that's what you want to see. Remember, we're still at that same point. We're still at that same point right now. That's the point I'm trying to make. Remember, with this, we're buying the underlying asset. So it doesn't matter whether you buy it today and then it continues going up and then retraces, you still have it at the same point. And then it takes off. Because most of you guys are in the UK, which means then you can't buy CFDs. Now, if we were looking to CFD trade, yes, we would have to wait for it to come back to here. The only question you have to ask yourself is, do you think that this is the beginning of this bullish movement? Or do you think that is just a false breakout and it is going to now come the whole way down to there? That is the only question we have to ask ourselves. And if we think it's a false breakout, you do not buy any more of it till it comes back down to about here. If you think that this is a bullish market, because we're buying the underlying asset, we can literally start buying it at any particular point. But once it starts getting up to 50K, that's not where I would start buying it from then. We're sort of in the buying zone now. This is, for me, is the buying zone. I myself have bought some at this green line. I had another order right here. It didn't quite trigger me in. We have technically made a higher high. Look, today's bar is literally higher than it. But I'd like to see the bar close above that high. Okay, it's also sort of hit its head there, hasn't it? So I'd like to see that rejection there before I can see anything massive happening. So if you're of the mind that it's hit its head now and it's coming back down there, you hold on to that. If you're of the mind that this is now going to break out, then you buy it. And then just like someone said there, I can't remember who it was, that if you think that this is the beginning of the Bitcoin breakout, so Bitcoin, like I've said it before, is a bit like the dollar index is to the likes of the dollar. It's an index sort of for the rest of the currency or the crypto market as well. So let's have a quick look at some of the other ones. So ADA. And again, come back down to this floor, and we had a little pop to the upside. Did anyone buy any more on this floor at 0.999? I'll have a look at XRP now next, Peter. So again, out of the cryptocurrencies, for me, ADA has probably been the easiest to read. Look at that level. That level at 0.999 is huge. It's a huge level. It's probably the easiest market to read. One of the easiest charts to read at the minute is once it hit the 1.4, then it dropped. Once it hits the $1 mark, you buy up some more. It's been pretty easy to trade. Now, the only concern was if it breaks that level down there, where does it stop? That was the only concern, is where does it stop? So a little bit of a bull run on the likes of Bitcoin would be pretty nicely appreciated here to get some more upward momentum, and then hopefully this will be the new low. Okay. But it's been pretty easy to sort of read that once it hit these levels, dropped there, hit the level again, dropped, hit that level again, dropped, hit this level, bounced. Okay, so make sure you're seeing the likes of these. We can, when the market is dropping or sideways, we can actually see these patterns. Remember, you're not the only one that's seeing these patterns. Everyone else is seeing them. It's just whether you have the education or the actual steel to take it. That's all. So that there was a nice entry. I eventually got triggered into my trade here. Yay! Finally. Even though I placed the trade over here. So I placed the trade in July, and I got triggered in here. But it really makes a difference. Why? Because I still would have held on to that trade all the way through here anyway. So XRP. So I know absolutely nothing about XRP. It's gone sort of dead on the home front. Is the court case finished? Is it not finished? What is the outcome? Where is it so far? What's going on? Please educate me, people. Court case isn't finished. Okay. It's just anything now for me has gone very, very quiet. But again, look, it came back into that sort of level and it took off. It's not rocket science, is it? We have a pretty decent level there. 1, 2, that's a third touch now. If I'm not mistaken, we've other touches back here. Look, again, bounce, 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 bounce. I don't really want to see anyone buying XRP outside of this level because of the court case. So you have to be very confident that it's going to break or beat the court case to be value outside of this level. Okay, you're then starting to get a little bit too expensive. once it breaks this level here. But anywhere in this zone for me is a buying. So meme coins as a whole had a good bounce yesterday. So you classing XRP as a meme coin? Wow. One time ago, XRP was the darling bud of coins, wasn't it? It was the only alternative to Bitcoin. So the only coin that really sort of held up through the whole thing was Matic. Let's have a quick look, see how that's been going. And again, we had a little bit of a jump yesterday on Matic. It's the only one that hasn't really been in free fall. Now, would I have bought it there? Probably not. Even though there is a double bottom there, I probably wouldn't. It's not as easy to read as to say the likes of Ripple or XRP, the likes of ADA that we've just looked at. So it's not quite as clean as there. But did anyone buy it at the double bottom there, or were you expecting it to drop lower? So it's the only coins that I hold that I'm actually up at the moment is this one. I know some of you guys were on sand. And we actually had a really nice break, bounce, and then a break on this. So if this comes back and hits this level, it looks like a pretty decent buy zone, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3. Now the problem with this is this is pretty high. This is pretty high from where it was. Okay, so it's still to me a little bit overvalued. I mean, it's still a little bit overvalued, but again, with these coins, as we're trying to find a coin that everyone's going to jump in on, and if everyone jumps in on this, then we'd expect this to sort of pop to the upside. We'd expect this to make higher highs. Why? Because everyone is sort of jumping in on the bandwagon. But would I buy this here myself? Probably not. Probably not. But there is a level there, and if it comes back, we do have 1, 2, 3 touches. So I know Solana was the one that everyone jumped on for a little while. And it had a pretty big fall from grace. It had a pretty big fall from grace here, which was to be expected. Down to the low there was a 68% drop. Okay, the where it is now today is a 56% drop. Okay, so there's loads of upside here. There's 100% upside on the likes of this if it gets to the record high here. The question is will it? Is there enough momentum in this now to start to make higher highs again? Is there actually legitimacy in this particular coin now? Is it going to be actually, what's the use case? Is it any good? Or was it basically one of those meme coins that was getting pumped that everyone jumped in on? Now remember, you guys should be starting to get good at these pump and dump meme coins. That once these pumps start happening, jump in on it. And once the dump starts happening, get out of it. Get out of them. Sand is a leader in metaverse. And what's metaverse? When do we realize we're in a bear market in crypto? Can anyone answer that? Mark Zuckerberg, haha. So when do we realize we're in a bear market with crypto? Can anyone answer that? That's a fair point. And I'm putting that across the board to you guys first to see, can anyone actually answer that question? So when do we realize we're in a bear market in crypto? Now, unless everyone is writing big long sentences, the chat room has gone very quiet. We're in one for the last few months. Fall of more than 80% on Bitcoin. Okay, so a couple of people got the answer right. When Bitcoin goes down. Okay? When Bitcoin goes down. Because remember, see, Bitcoin sort of drives the market, most of them, okay? Not all of them, but as a general, when Bitcoin goes up, the rest of the coins go up. When Bitcoin drops, the rest of the coins go down. So if you're wanting to know, are we in a bear market yet, is keep an eye on BTC. You may not be using it to trade, but you're using it to see the structure of the market. So if we're using Bitcoin at the moment to see the structure of the market, for me, the structure of the market is, it actually looks like there's a potential ring head and shoulders there. Okay, this potentially could have a head and shoulders, and we could come back, hit that level there. And that then will be a left shoulder, head, this will be the right shoulder, and we expect it to take off. Up here, we had a high, with a higher high, but it had a barely higher high. We had a massive sideways movement here, and then we took out this low. When the likes of that happens on the likes of these meme coins, I'd be looking to get out of them. You could argue, well, Henry, the same happens here. Well, if you're after running a meme coin from here up to here, take your profit and run. If it pulls back into a nice area, instead of putting everything that you took out as run, put maybe 50% of it in. If it takes off again, happy days. When it makes that lower low, you jump out again. So yes, you are giving back a little bit at the top, but you're getting this big run in the middle. Okay. Well, look, everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for listening to me ramble for the last hour. Chainsaw started outside, so that's time for me to go. Have a lovely evening, everyone. See you later. Bye-bye.